This tutorial is meant to be an introduction to improvising solos. And the first thing we need to realize, especially for the purposes of this tutorial, is that improvising solos is all kind of based around scales. And what most people start with is the pentatonic scale. So there's a lot of different kinds of scales out there, right? But we're going to choose the pentatonic for this tutorial. I think most people, when they're just starting out soloing, tend to start with these pentatonic positions. We teach 5 positions of the pentatonic scale, and they're kind of these box shapes, right? Like position 1 in G, all the way through position 5, right? There's 5 positions, and so we're going to be using those scales to improvise these solos. The first determination we need to make is what type of song it is, and we're going to boil it down, oversimplify it here, to what we're going to call kind of a diatonic progression, which would be something like this, that stays in the key. So in the key of G, we've got all notes that are in the key of G in this progression. They're all chords from the key of G. I would classify that as like a diatonic progression. So we're going to want to use one kind of scale for that, the pentatonic scale. And then we're going to want to make an adjustment if we feel like it's not that, if it's more bluesy. So for example, if it were something like that, where you hear a lot of these colorful chords. This is a dominant 7. It's kind of got a distinct sound. Instead of just an E, it's dominant 7. For something like that, all of those notes are not in the key of E, right? It's a blues progression. It's E blues. So for that, we're going to make a determination based on the sound of the chord progression, and we're going to play it slightly differently. So we're going to talk through both of these things. I've got my loop station right here, so I'm going to create a couple little loops that we can practice over a little bit, and we're going to start improvising some solos. For the diatonic progression, we're going to use the G pentatonic scale, okay? So I'm going to play all chords from the key of G. All the notes that I'm playing in these chords are in the key of G. So that's what I'm kind of talking about with it being a diatonic chord progression. So if we stay in that G pentatonic scale and solo using that, we're going to be okay. One of the concepts we're going to talk about here is what I'm going to call skating over the top, which means we're not thinking about, oh, okay, he's playing a G there, and now he's playing a C, so I'm going to play something different. We're skating over the top. Since we know we're in the key of G, we're just going to kind of be playing the key of G scale. And we're going to start very simply. We're just actually going to play the scale. And then we're going to take a little bit more freedom with the order that we play the notes. And we're going to use some tricks like bends and vibrato. And we're going to slowly but surely be making this musical. Okay, so let me do a chord progression here. I'm going to get it down. And in the meantime, pick a pentatonic scale. A good one to start with is this 3rd position. I love soloing with this 3rd position. It looks like this. But if you're watching this tutorial, you should really know the 5 positions of the pentatonic scale. So we don't need to go over that note for note. But any position in the key of G pentatonic is fair game for this, but when we start, I'm going to start with that position 3. All right, so here's the progression. All right, so now we're just going to play this position 3 pentatonic over the top of this, and you're going to hear it kind of sounds a little like a solo, right? Here we go. Let's take a little more freedom now. You don't have to play it all in the same order. Just you can stop sometimes. So already, this is starting to sound a little more musical. We're going to add some other things in now. let's hammer-ons, pull-offs. We can slide. We can do vibrato, you know. We can bend. Guys, it's not that complicated. When you know everything is in one key, you can skate over the top like that and it sounds good. Let's go to some other positions. Let's go up to position 5. This is a great soloing position. Now let's make it musical. Let's mix it up a little bit. All right, so obviously I'm getting a little advanced there, okay, and it's not going to sound like that right away, but you get the idea. That's just called skating over the top, or whatever you want to call it. We're just noodling, using those scales, but the important things to think about are giving it space. You don't want to sound like a robot, right? You're going to give it space instead of just. You could play. You're going to give it some space. You're not going to sound like a robot. You're going to throw some things in there like vibrato. We can bend notes. So again, this is just an introduction, but this is just to get you thinking about how to solo, and this is a great place to start, and it's really, it's a lot easier than we think it is a lot of times when we're just starting out. So we got some jam-along tracks, some backing tracks on this lesson. The best thing you can do is just understand what key you're in, and if you know the key of G pentatonic scale to start there. Get a background track in the key of G, and just go through all the positions and try and find things that sound good to you. Write licks, make it as musical as you can, and it's just going to continue to get more and more comfortable from there. All right, in this kind of second part of the introduction to soloing, we're going to talk about a concept and try to make it as simple as we can. We're actually going to oversimplify it a little bit here. When you hear a blues progression, or when you're playing over a blues progression in the key of G, for example, you can't always just play a key of G pentatonic. You can, and it will sound okay. But there's an easy trick that we can use to make it sound even better and make it sound bluesy. So, for example, if we're in the key of E, common blues key, you could play E pentatonic. How's that sound? Yeah, it can be okay. Actually, mode mixture, that's an advanced concept we'll talk about later on. It can be good to mix and match a little bit, but you don't want to only play that over an E blues progression. So if, let's do it again here. Which one sounded better? To me, anyway, the second one sounds better because it sounds like blues. So if your band or whoever you're jamming with is playing the blues, there's an easy way we can figure this out. By the way, do you know which scale I was just playing? All of what I just played was just G pentatonic, basically. The music theory, the college level way to say it would be, if we're playing in E blues, we're going to play E natural minor is another way to think of it as an E blues scale. When I was just figuring this stuff out, I always thought I did a little mental trick that I'm going to share with you now. Everyone probably does this. I don't know. I've never really talked about it with anyone. But the trick I use to figure this out is if we're playing E blues, I go, okay, what key are we in? E blues. We're in E blues. I find an E note on the guitar neck, E, and I go 1, 2, 3. Up 3 frets, 1, 2, 3. That's a G. So I'm going to play G pentatonic, and it works. So if you're in E blues, you go up 3 frets, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then you play that pentatonic scale. You recognize that scale, right? That's the position 3 pentatonic box in the key of G. And it works for everything. If you're in A blues, you know what I'm playing right there? It's that position 5 pentatonic box in the key of C. And it sounds good, right? Same thing with D. If you're in D blues, what would we play there for D blues? We'd go, here's a D note, 1, 2, 3, that's an F. So we're going to play an F pentatonic. All right, so you might not be comfortable switching keys of the pentatonic scale yet, which is fine. That will come over time. We have another tutorial on that you can watch. But for now, let's just focus on staying in G pentatonic. So if we're in E blues, we're going to throw on a backing track here. We're going to play the G pentatonic scale. And again, we're going to, since this is kind of an introductory level course, eventually we'll want to address specific chord changes. But for now, all we need to know is the key. If we're in E blues and it sounds bluesy and we got these dominant 7th chords going, which you can hear, we're going to go up 3 frets from the E note. There's an E note, 1, 2, 3, and we'll realize, oh, okay, we can play a G pentatonic scale over E blues, and it's going to sound good. So I'm going to, with my looper here, I'm just going to play the 12-bar blues. And then we're just going to kind of skate over the top using the different positions of the G pentatonic scale. We'll keep it simple at first, and then we're going to try and make it a little more musical as we go. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's start in position 3 here, the position 3 box. Let's just play it over it. Here we go. 3, 4. Position 5, let's hit it. 2, 3, 4. Go to position 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make it a little more musical. Let's shift up a position. This is position 3 now. Let's have some fun. This is all just that position 5 pentatonic box. down to 3, up to 4. So you get the idea. There's going to be a 12-bar blues backing track in the key of E at the end of this tutorial. So you can just go nuts. Don't confine yourself to just one position. Let's try not to be robotic. Let's make it musical, and we do that again by giving some space between our notes. And we're going to add in some vibrato. We're going to do some bending. Just do all the different things we can to keep it musical and keep our phrasing as nice as we can make it. So it really can be that simple, guys. And from there, you know, it's just a matter of the whole tone in your fingers thing. Just working on getting your sound right, getting it to sound the way you're hearing it in your head. Writing some lines and just getting more and more comfortable with it as we go on. So hope that was helpful. Here's just this, again, this was just meant to be a basic introduction to improvising using some simple tricks.